The Alien Council expected a hero. Earth sent them a 47-year-old mechanic. That was the first mistake. The second was laughing at him. And the third was assuming that because Daniel Mercer carried a toolbox instead of a weapon, he was harmless. The story began on the planet Veyra, a world humans had been invited to help save. Veyra was dying. Its core was destabilizing. Its oceans were boiling along the equator. Massive storms covered half the planet, and beneath the northern mountains lived creatures that even the Galactic Defense Fleet refused to approach. The Galactic Council had asked Earth for its best. Everyone expected soldiers, scientists, engineers with medals, maybe even a famous human war hero. Instead, the human transport opened its doors and Daniel Mercer stepped out. Gray hair, old work boots, a faded jacket, and a metal toolbox. The alien commander stared at him. "Where is the human rescue team?" Daniel looked around. "You're looking at it." Silence. Then someone laughed. A six-legged alien officer leaned toward another. "They sent us a technician?" Daniel sighed. "Mechanic, actually." That caused even more laughter. Commander Veyra finally stepped forward. "You understand that this is a planetary emergency?" Daniel nodded. "That's why I'm here." "You have no combat armor?" "No." "No military rank?" "Nope." "No advanced weapon?" Daniel lifted his toolbox. "I have a wrench." The commander stared at him, then walked away. Nobody noticed the small smile on Daniel's face, because Daniel had learned something during 47 years on Earth. When everyone else was panicking, someone still had to fix the machine. The problem was worse than the Council had reported. Veyra's central energy regulator was failing. If it shut down, the planet's magnetic shield would collapse. The radiation storm approaching from the star would reach the surface in 6 hours. 9 billion lives would be lost. The alien engineers had already tried everything. Quantum relays, plasma stabilizers, artificial gravity anchors. Nothing worked. Daniel entered the reactor chamber alone. The alien engineers followed him, mostly because they wanted to watch him fail. The chamber was enormous. Pipes covered the walls. Energy arcs jumped between massive towers. The floor vibrated beneath their feet. Daniel slowly walked around the reactor. He didn't touch anything. He simply listened. Commander Veyra frowned. "What are you doing?" "Listening." "To what?" "The machine." Several aliens exchanged confused looks. Daniel placed his hand against a metal support. He closed his eyes, then tapped it twice. "That's your problem." The chief engineer nearly exploded. "That is the primary coolant support." "Exactly." Daniel opened his toolbox. "You replaced the original support with a stronger alloy." "Yes." "Why?" "Because the original kept cracking." Daniel nodded. "And now the reactor is overcorrecting." The engineer froze. Daniel pointed toward the ceiling. "Your system isn't failing." Everyone stared. "It's fighting itself." Silence. Daniel smiled. "Congratulations. You built a machine smart enough to panic." For the first time, nobody laughed. They had 20 minutes to fix it. Daniel crawled beneath the reactor. He removed 3 panels, then 4, then a section of insulation. The aliens watched in disbelief. Their most advanced engineers had spent weeks studying the reactor. Daniel had found the problem in 11 minutes. But then something went wrong. A warning siren screamed. The reactor temperature jumped. The entire chamber shook. Commander Veyra shouted, "Everyone out." Daniel looked up. A massive coolant pipe had ruptured. Superheated vapor filled the chamber. The alien engineers ran. Daniel didn't. He saw a maintenance hatch beneath the reactor. Behind it was a manual pressure valve. But the valve was damaged. He could reach it. He just couldn't turn it. Daniel looked at his toolbox, then at the valve. Then he laughed softly. "Well," he pulled out the wrench. "At least I brought the right one." He crawled into the chamber. The pressure rose. The metal floor became dangerously hot. His gloves began to burn. Commander Veyra watched from behind the emergency barrier. "Mercer!" Daniel didn't answer. "Daniel!" Still nothing. The valve moved 1 centimeter, then stopped. Daniel gritted his teeth. He pushed again. Nothing. For a moment, he simply leaned against the pipe. Then he heard something, a small sound. A child crying. He looked toward the observation corridor. A young Veyran technician had been trapped behind a damaged door. Daniel could hear her. The emergency evacuation system had failed. Daniel had a choice: finish the valve, or save the child. He didn't hesitate. He abandoned the valve. He ran toward the door. Commander Veyra shouted, "What are you doing?" Daniel reached the damaged door. The child was trapped underneath a fallen support beam. Daniel dropped his toolbox. He pushed the beam. It didn't move. He pushed again. Nothing. Then he remembered something his father had taught him when he was 12. Never fight weight. Change the angle. Daniel looked around. He grabbed a loose metal bar, used it as a lever. The beam lifted just enough. "Come on, kid." The child crawled free. Daniel pulled her into his arms. Then the reactor screamed. The valve had become completely inaccessible. They had less than 3 minutes. Commander Veyra stared at the control panel. "We cannot stop it." Daniel placed the child behind the emergency shield, then looked at the reactor. "Yes, we can." The commander shook his head. "You abandoned the valve." Daniel pointed at the broken support beam. That beam wasn't just holding the door. The aliens looked confused. Daniel grabbed his wrench. It was connected to the coolant system. He had noticed it earlier. The damaged support had been vibrating at the same frequency as the reactor. Daniel understood. The entire reactor had been designed around mechanical balance. Not just computers, not just quantum systems. Physical balance. Something ancient engineers had forgotten. Daniel climbed onto the reactor platform. He removed one final bolt, then kicked the support loose. The entire structure shifted. For one terrifying second, everyone thought the reactor would explode. Instead, the pressure dropped. The coolant began flowing. The energy readings stabilized. The alarms stopped. Silence filled the chamber. Then the reactor lights turned green. Nobody moved. Commander Veyra slowly walked toward Daniel. "How did you know?" Daniel picked up his toolbox. "I didn't." The commander stared at him. Daniel smiled. "I just knew something was wrong." 6 hours later, the radiation storm struck Veyra. The planetary shield held, 9 billion lives survived, and the Galactic Council demanded to know who had saved them. The answer surprised them. Not a general, not a legendary warrior, not a genius with 10 degrees. Daniel Mercer, a middle-aged human mechanic from a small town on Earth. The Council awarded him the highest civilian honor in the galaxy. Daniel accepted it quietly, then asked one question: "Can I go home now?" The ceremony stopped. Commander Veyra laughed. "After saving an entire planet?" Daniel shrugged. "I promised my daughter I'd call her." That was when the aliens finally understood humanity. Humans did not always send their strongest. They did not always send their most famous. Sometimes Earth sent the person who knew how to repair an old engine. Sometimes it sent the tired father, the quiet mechanic, the ordinary engineer, the person nobody expected, because humanity had learned something the galaxy had forgotten. A hero did not always arrive carrying a sword. Sometimes he arrived carrying a toolbox. Sometimes he was 47 years old. Sometimes nobody noticed him, until everything broke. And then, he was exactly the person the universe needed. Earth had not sent its greatest warrior. Earth had sent its problem solver. And the galaxy would never laugh at a human toolbox again.